kind of comic pictures, the black and white art, and turn it into something that looks like it could be real, like a real dude. So I thought it would be interesting to reach out to my friend Dawud and Brian McGee and get BROTHERMAN, which is a comic I heard about a while ago, actually when I was living in Philly, and do like a reimagining of their character. So without any further ado, what you see on the left is the original line drawing. On the right here is the color rendering done by Brian, which is already pretty awesome. And I'm going to do my spin on it. So what I did was I went through some of my photo reference, and I found this is pretty much the process for all of my work when I do this comic stuff. Is I go through my photos and I see, is there anything that is relevant to whatever I'm working on? And if I look at this picture of 50 Cent, I can see, you know, it's not too far off from, you know, the way that BROTHERMAN kind of feels here. He's got a lot of the same square features on his face. He's got the bulletproof vest, and, you know, he's Diesel. So so let's get started. I'm going to take this line drawing. I set my preserve transparency. I turn it on here, and I'm going to select a color. Pull up my color. My temporal color picker, and select like a desaturated blue. All right. Select the whole page, and I'm going to fill that line. Now I'm going to turn down the opacity and go ahead and set up a new layer. If this were, you know, for any other thing, I'd probably spend time working on a background. But I really like the way that the character looks on just a white background with maybe, you know, the cast shadow. So I'm going to leave white for now. And the great thing is it'll be on a layer, so if I decide to add something later, I can go in and do it. So make sure I turn off my preserve transparency, go back to my layer. Actually, let me name this line so I don't get it confused. And this will be my color. All right, get my brush and go get some, actually, sorry, I'll go up here and get my Scratchboard Tool and my color mixer. Oops. All right, and I'm just going to grab a skin tone here and just drop in. Turn up my opacity. Just drop in some color really quickly. And I don't really worry about the how clean it is, because I'm going to go in and paint over things and erase things and all that good stuff anyway. So everything always goes down flat, and I even leave areas of paper showing through. Sometimes it, you know, it ends up being kept, and other times I end up painting over it. But I just grab like a neutral gray, something kind of like a warm gray that I'm using for all the white areas, and I will I'll go and boost up the lights and push the darks back later on. So I really don't want to spend too much time on laying in these base colors. Turn up the opacity so I don't have to go over it so many times. Um, oops. All right, so that's pretty much the first step. Now I'm going to go into the skin areas. For some reason, I always start off with people's skin, faces, probably because it's the most interesting thing to me. I just grab my eraser and I'm just cleaning up some of these places where I overpainted here. Again, it's still pretty loose.
Mike?
Uh-huh.
I had a question come in from Alex, and he's asking if you customize a lot of your brushes, or do you predominantly use the brushes that are in Painter 12?
Well, that's an interesting question because the brushes in the Illustrator workspace are my actual brushes. So that's all stuff that I've customized over the years, and then gave it to you guys so everybody can pretty much have it straight out of the box, working exactly the way that mine work. And that goes for my paper textures and everything. That's all stuff directly from my desktop. So I'm going to try to get as much done as I can in this hour, and that's why it looks like, you know, if it looks like I'm just jamming through this, I don't normally work this fast. But we don't have a ton of time. All right, so let me get some blue, and I'm just going to color pick right from over here. Come back over to here. Drop in. And if I ever start to run into a problem where make this a little smaller, where I can't see the line, I'll just darken it up. I set it to multiply, by the way, so even though it's blue, I can still see, you know, I can still see the other colors that it's going over top. Oops. All right. Don't do that. Now, the reason I've named this line is so I wouldn't go in and mistakenly start painting on it, which I do that kind of frequently, but you can just undo it. It's not a big deal. All right. Now, even with that being as loose as it is, I want to start to get an idea of my lighting. And kind of what I had in mind was to drop in like it's a night scene. So maybe there's a bluish cast on his back and more of a white light coming from his side. A warm color here. So choose something in here. Okay, and those are going to be my lights. So you'll see I'm on a new layer, and just for now I'm going to set this for multiply so I can see what I'm doing.
Mike, would you like me to hold the questions until the end, or do you want me to throw out? We have quite a few questions coming in, but I can.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay.
No, I can answer while I'm doing it.
Okay. So Patrick is wondering if you use the pencils to make the outline drawing.
That's what I would normally do. I actually got this this drawing from Dawud and Brian, so they did the pencils already. if you look at it without the color, you'll see that there's, you know, some hatching going on and some dynamic stuff like that. I normally don't even bother with that. I'll do a fairly tight pencil. Like if I was going to go and do this, basically I would just grab my pencil, make a new layer, and just kind of sketch over, you know, what I need to do. But I wouldn't get into any of the shading or anything like that. I would just keep it fairly loose. You know, it's just something so I have an indicator of what's going on.
A question
Did you
from...
want to ask me?
Sure. A question from James is, what resolution and DPI do you usually work at?
Oh, that's a good question. I always work at 200 at my actual physical canvas size. So if you look at the size of the canvas, it's 14 by 19 and 200. And what I do at the end after I'm completely done is I will turn off the constrained file size and boost it to 300. I've tried that in Photoshop, but what happens is you lose resolution and it gets blurry. For whatever reason, it doesn't seem to do that in Painter, which is why I just save, you know, I save file space by working smaller than 300. Oops.
And I'm sure you'll get to this a little bit down the road, but Dorothy's wondering if you'll merge the line layer into the main image when you're done. Do you merge everything together?
When I am done, the line will be completely painted over. So I won't really need to merge it. Usually what I'll do is I'll work a section and then erase the pencil as I complete that section. So by the time I'm done, you're not really going to see any line. So what I'm doing now is just trying to decide what kind of rim lighting I want here. And I think I'm going to, just for now, so I don't mess it up, I'm going to leave that on its own layer and do the shading on another layer, the block anyway. So for this one, I can multiply. And I'll also turn down the opacity so it's not too dark.
We have a question about blending, and they're wondering which tool you use to blend the colors together.
Normally I use the Just Add Water, and I also, a lot of times to blend, I will just use my, I'm sorry, the Just Add Water is right here. So I could do that. A lot of times I use my Scratchboard tool and just turn down the opacity really low, and I'll select my light color and say turn down to a 10% opacity and just paint over my, well, I'm using multiply now so it doesn't work, but I'll show you what I mean. Yeah, I'll select this light color and just go over the dark until it starts to blend a little bit, because I like to keep the paint on the edge.
Oops, I'm sorry. I forgot to turn my microphone off, and I've been typing answers to questions here. Brenda is wondering, on average, how many hours do you take on your paintings? I realize that's a difficult question.
My wife would say too many, and I tend to agree with her. Probably about between 20 and 40 hours a piece. But I mean, it depends on how much detail is in it, you know. Sometimes I've gone way over that, and other times I've been able to knock a piece out a little faster than that. For some reason, my brushes. Oh, turn up the opacity. Okay. Okay. So anyway, yeah, it's one thing to note is that these things always start off really kind of messy, and you have to just kind of believe that it's going to get it's going to get better. You know, right now it's just kind of looking like a mess. So another trick that I use is I blend on another layer. Okay. I'll blend on a separate layer. So if say I take away something that I want to keep later on, I can go and erase that layer. You know, like say I blend this and I realize now I've just completely gotten rid of all the detail that I want to keep. I can go to my eraser and turn down the opacity and erase some of that back, and I get some of that nice detail that I had before. So, as you can see, as you start to, I'm using the blender right now, as a matter of fact. So as you see, you know, as it starts to blend, it starts to make a little bit more sense. And now, at this point, I would probably just merge all these colors.
Mike,
And
what type of system are you working on? There's a question about your CPU speed.
Oh, sure. This is a Mac Pro. Mac Pro 266 quad, and I've completely maxed out my memory. Well, I didn't max it out, but I got 16 gigs of memory in it, so it's running a lot faster than it did before. And I'm using a Wacom 204.
I answered that question for you because a lot of people have been asking what tablet you're using. And we, of course, know that you'd love to have a Cintiq.
I would love to have a Cintiq if I haven't mentioned that before. That doesn't change.
Do you have a, pardon me?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Is there a particular paper grain that you prefer to use across your variety of paintings, or does it change?
You know what? I use just the standard paper and the basic paper, and I like the tooth it gives me. Like if I'm using my oil pastel, you know, well, of course you can't see it now, but maybe it's this one. Yeah, like it just gives me a nice look when I go in, and even when I use my blender, I have some of that tooth left that I enjoy. All right, so just so we can make this guy start looking like something, let's start working on the face. I'll make a new layer, grab my Scratchboard Tool, and let me get a nice set of skin tones here. And I'm lighting this different than the picture of 50, so if it looks like, if it looks odd, that's the reason why.
How did you determine what your mixer colors were?
It's a ton of trial and error. I used to do a lot of illustrations for magazines like Vibe and XXL and stuff like that, so I just kind of came up with these colors over a ton of illustrations, and then I just kept them.
And I know that you love the Scratchboard tool, but there's a question that's in regards of why do you prefer that brush over some of the other tools for your primary blocking in of color?
I think the unpredictability of it, you know what I mean? Like it's a very random brush, you know, depending upon pressure, you just get some really different strokes here, and you see where it overlays, it's more opaque, and it has square edges, and even down here, like these weird geometric shapes that it gives you, they lend themselves almost to fooling people into thinking that it's like a texture of skin, you know what I mean? Like I like that a lot for areas where it looks like pores. Down here you can see it's happening a little bit in the chin. And I'll keep a lot of that, you know, more often than not. Like if I go in and blend, I'll be very, you know, very mindful of the fact that I don't want to take away too much of it. I want to keep some of that. So, like if I turn off my line here, you can really tell. And as I start to knock in some of these really dark areas, that, you know, the face starts to come together. It doesn't just look like a giant mess. One of the things that's kind of tricky about doing an illustration where you're taking something where it's a piece of cartoon art and turning it into a kind of a more photorealistic thing is trying to keep, you want to be true to that image, but at the same time, you know, it's, if you're too true to it, it'll clearly come off like a, you know, a piece of 2D art, you know, animation or whatever. Like if you look at Brian's piece, it's very cool, but it's comic art, you know what I mean? Like it's clearly dynamic, really well rendered comic art. Putting that in a space where it could pass for maybe a, I don't know, a movie storyboard or piece of concept art for a video game or something like that. You know, it's kind of a challenge to keep the spirit of this comic and bring it into a real world. So I think that's part of the reason why I like it so much. This is another reason why it's nice using this brush. Like you saw, I just scribbled down some lines there, and they almost kind of lend themselves to being teeth. You know, I'll go over them, you know, but It's not a bad start.
Are you working entirely in a digital format now, or do you do any traditional work?
I haven't done traditional work in the past year. I know that just because I haven't had time. A lot of times I'll do my drawings right in Painter, and I don't even keep a sketchbook anymore. But you know, that's how I began, was traditionally. I think that helps too when you're doing your digital paintings. You know, a lot of people jump straight into solely working on the computer, and to me, it loses a little bit of that you know, that human feel to it. Things can get really smooth, or they can get really you know, they can just feel very computer generated, no matter how good the art is. And starting off and from a traditional base, I think, has helped me kind of avoid that look. So this would be where I would kind of step back and say, this is my stage 2. Okay. All right, so it's starting to look a little bit like a face now.
This will be a fun one for you to answer. Do you ever use live models to draw from?
When I can get my wife to pose for me, or my kids, I will. It's been a long time since I've actually had a stranger pose for me. It's either usually whoever I can get my hands on, whether it be throwing up a tripod and shooting myself, or getting my kids to put on a ninja mask or something.
There are quite a few questions about your mixer palette, from is it available as a download to how do you actually save the mixer palette along with your artwork, or save the mixer palette so that you can load it back in.
Yeah, you can totally get this mixer palette with all my colors here and everything. Everything I have on my desktop, from my brushes to my papers, you know, I got my essential oils over here and everything. That's all in the Illustrator workspace that you can download from the Corel Painter 12 site, and then you just load it in under your workspace. So you know, you can have all that. And if you want to save your own mixers, you know, I think it's as easy as just pulling out the flyout and saving. Plus, with the new update that just came out, you can bring in JPEGs and, you know, TIFFs and all kinds of stuff, and use those as your mixer palette. So it's pretty easy.
The other question that has come up repeatedly, and I have posted in the Q&A panel, is about the keyboard command for the temporal color palette.
Uh-oh. I asked you that last time we were working. You know what? I set it up as a shortcut on my Intuos pad.
It's Control-Alt-1 or Command. I already typed it in the Q&A panel here. And then we also have a shortcuts document that you can download that has not only that keyboard shortcut, but the other top keyboard shortcuts that many of you are asking me for in this session. So I'll post the link right now in the Q&A panel so that you can all find it. But it's on the tutorials section of the Corel Painter pages. Corel.com/painter, and then go to tutorials and you'll find it.
So another thing I do that a lot of artists do is flip the palette, or not the palette, the the paper, just to see a new perspective as I'm working on this, and that helps a lot. All right, so I'm going to go in and add some more shadow, I think. Set this one for multiply. Turn it down.
Are you up for some more questions?
Absolutely, keep them coming.
What size monitor are you using? And do you ever use two monitors?
I used to use my monitor in a 17-inch PowerBook as like a secondary. What I have now is a 20, I think it's a 21 or 23-inch Apple Cinema display. And I tried, just to free up real estate, I tried, there's a piece of software I got for my iPad 2 that allowed me to mirror the screen, and I could grab my palettes and keep them on the iPad, and then just keep all my pictures and the actual image that I'm painting on the main primary screen, which is pretty nice. Anything that frees up space for me to put, you know, like you can see I got my palette over top of my picture here. I'd like to have all that stuff free, but you know, you do what you do.
And while you're talking about your palettes, they're wondering if you have everything on one layer or are you working on multiple layers?
For my illustration?
Yes.
Oh, here they are right here. No, they're multiple layers.
Okay.
So you can see this is what I'm doing right now is a kind of just like a shadow area that's on its own layer. This was the face that I painted, and kind of my rule of thumb is when I get to a point that I like, I'll drop it to the to my layer that has a color on it, just to free up space. So that's what's going on now.
And then there's a question about for animators, for 2D animators, do you recommend Painter over Illustrator or Photoshop, and why?
For animators,
Yeah, for
I know that
2D animators.
I'm sorry, you said 2D or 3D?
2D.
I know that you can do animation in Painter. I never got into it too deeply. So I'm probably not the guy to ask, but yeah, I don't know how qualified I am to answer that one.
Okay. Yeah, you can do frame by frame animation in Painter, but I don't. Maybe that's something that we can follow up with afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, this is.
So now as I.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to say, as I paint the, as I start to paint in some of these areas of rim lighting, it's a lot of it is trial and error. So you'll see me putting these tones down, and then I'll come in and paint over an area. I might completely paint over this. I don't know. It's pretty much when I find something I like, I keep it. But that's it. What were you going to ask me?
If you're using the standard plastic nib in your stylus.
I'm using the black one right now. Let me see. Yeah, so yeah, if I open up my little thing that has all my nibs, it's the standard black plastic nib. I tried the other ones and I liked them, but they kind of wore down really quickly, so I don't have them anymore. This is the one I've been able to keep the longest without having it completely disappear on me. Oh, another thing I forgot to show too is, let me save, because you never knew. Under my preferences, if I go to my brush tracking, I think I did this for the last webinar, but I just laid out some strokes from my lightest pressure that I feel comfortable painting to darkest, and hit OK. And what that's going to do is that's going to alleviate me having to really press down super hard on my tablet and destroy that nib in order to get the strokes that I want. All right, I'm not really using 50, so I'm going to get rid of him and just pull this out.
You ever work on the highlights with an eraser?
No, I don't have a lot of control with the eraser. I end up erasing too much, so I don't. I've tried doing that. I've tried using the dodge and burn tool back when I was using Photoshop, and I wasn't very successful with that technique, so I kind of stopped doing it. So now, in order to make this, not look like a comic anymore, I'm going to go above this line drawing and start to lay in some strokes. And what that's going to do is just going to paint right over the line, and it's going to look a little more realistic.
I have Ralph mentioning your television commercial and how he saw you painting with the spray can graffiti art. I was just wondering, have you ever actually done traditional airbrushing?
Yeah, that's how I started. I used to paint jackets and Belle Biv DeVoe jeans and stuff like that back when I was in high school. So, that was the beginnings, and actually it went from that to doing T-shirts with airbrushing and then screen printing, and then that got into digital art, as I continued to work. I'm sorry if I get quiet here. You gotta just keep talking to me. I lose myself in some of this stuff here.
All right, I'm going through the questions.
As you can see, it starts to. Okay. I was just going to say it starts to look more realistic as I paint over that line.
Oh, there was a question as to whether or not you're using another device like an iPad, which I believe you have an iPad, don't you?
I do, yeah. I use that, and I started using some of the I got the, what is it called? The Nomad stylus, which looks like a brush. I'm waiting for you guys. I'm waiting for you to drop that Corel killer app that's going to give me pressure sensitivity, and I'll paint on that too. Tanya?
Okay, Mike, I'm listening to you. There might be an iPad something shortly.
Okay.
I can't make any definitive comments here.
Okay, I'll take no comment. All right. So the thing about my paintings are, if you look at them closely, they look very kind of haphazard and scribbly and stuff like that. But as you back away, it looks tight, So that's my whole thing. I could blend it until it's super smooth, but at that point, why not just take a photograph? So I don't go too crazy with the blender.
You use multiply when you're working on the shadows?
I did when I started there, like down here. I'll just use it to indicate where I want to have my shadows, and then when I get an idea of what I want, I'll paint over it with just a regular layer. So like at this point I would come in and I'd either blend away that edge and continue to paint, you know, using my eyedropper. That's another thing you'll see me do is I will, once I get the colors on the on my image, I'll use my eyedropper tool to sample and paint other areas. And I just have that set up as a quick key on my Wacom stylus. It's like the forward button where I keep my thumb so I can switch quickly.
Do you use any tools for monitor calibration?
I have one. I think I got the Pantone calibration device, but I was just talking to an Illustrator friend of mine yesterday about it. It's really, I don't know about that. You know, it's like I calibrate my screen. I will send my work to the printer for a magazine, and then it still gets either super shifted, the color spectrum will shift way out of whack, or it'll print really dark. I think it's kind of like it's a gamble. It's a gamble how your art is going to be reproduced. So at this point, I don't even use it. You know, I thought it was going to save my life, but it really didn't do the trick for me. I might be doing it wrong though, so who knows?
And I know that Photoshop is a part of your workflow, but what exactly do you use Painter for, and then what do you do in Photoshop?
Sure. Like I was saying when I talked to Andy, I do pretty much all of my painting in Painter. Then once I get to a point where I'm happy, I'm gonna pull up something real quick. All right, so I did this piece for, of course I have adjustment layers. All right, so I did this piece a while ago, and I really didn't have anything to go by, so I did the drawing, and then I went in and did the paints, and because it's such an awkward pose and his armor was looking kind of odd at different angles, I would take the image from a stage in Painter into Photoshop and use the warp tool and the liquify to pull little parts around and stuff. And then when I got it to where I thought the proportions were a little better, I'd come back in Painter and I'd start working on it again. You know what I mean? Like I constantly go back and forth. That's just like, that's my workflow. So as I'm doing, you know, BROTHERMAN, like if I had to draw this and I didn't have the pencils already given to me, I would probably at, you know, the 75% stage of this illustration go into Paint or Photoshop, tweak it, maybe play with my my adjustments as far as the colors, boosting some areas, pushing back some other areas, and then I'd come back into Painter and start working on it all over again.
There are all kinds of questions coming in here, and I'm going to move to the ones that just about how you started your career. How did you obtain your first digital art job, and do you have any advice for anyone how to break into that?
Yeah, the digital thing kind of, I didn't seek a digital career. I started off in T-shirts. So, you know, and I went to University of Maryland College Park, and I decided to make a T-shirt when I saw some people walking around campus getting, you know, weekend money selling them. So I did the artwork traditionally with pen and ink. Did my color separations and learned how to work that and sold it. Then after I got out of school, I started working for an ad agency that had computers, and that was my first exposure. I think I was working on CorelDRAW back in the day, and on a PC. So I worked in that, moved on to T-shirt companies, worked for companies like Echo and Rockaware and things like that, and got more into the computer side. And after that, I just started focusing on illustration for my freelance. That turned into magazine work, and the magazine work got noticed, and that turned into Coca-Cola and stuff like that. So it really, but it wasn't anything that was an easy journey. It's one of those things where it took a long time to start building up a decent client base, and now I can look at it and be like, okay, I've done some pretty cool projects and worked with some nice companies, but for the longest time it was just trying to get that first one, so I don't know if there's any one easy way. I think you got an easier shot now with the advent of social media and Twitter and Facebook, things like that. You're only a couple steps away from anybody that you want to show your work to, so that's it's a major plus. I couldn't get my stuff in front of people before, and now it's very easy. So this is looking dark now, and what I would do at this point is make a new layer, and I would start adding in some of the lights just to try to bring it up. I constantly grab different skin tones, and I think it looks more natural if you're using more than one color.
Can you turn off the line art layer for just a moment? We had a question so that they can see the rendering that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice, Mike.
Thanks. It's still pretty much a mess, but you get the picture.
Now, when you're done with this work, what file format do you save it to? Photoshop or RIF?
Just because it's always going to be reproduced by someone, I always just pretty much just save it as a Photoshop file.
And do you ever bring it back into Photoshop to convert to CMYK, or do you send off in RGB?
I do. I've done it both ways. I don't like having to convert it to CMYK, but I've done it myself, and I've also sent it out for people who are much better than I am to do it.
There's a question asking if you ever use Poser for posing reference and lighting.
I do. I'm laughing because Tanya and I just had this conversation before we started. Yeah, normally, like back when I was doing the G.I. Joe stuff, I would pose myself and in front of a tripod and set up lighting and shoot myself and all that stuff, and use that. I just don't have time to do it anymore. So what I've done is I upgraded to the latest version of Poser. I think they're on a 9 now, and I'll do that. I'll show you. Well, let me just show you. Since you asked, let me get it. I did this last night, so I went and looked at the line drawing. I posed this dude, kind of beefed him up a little bit, made his arms big, and then I did separate lighting, which gave me an idea of what I wanted to do. So you can see eventually what I'll end up with is a nice blue cast on his back that's broken by a shadow area, and then almost like a headlight, like maybe there's somebody trying to run a truck or something into him, and that's where you're getting the the white light from the front. So I ended up going with another thing is I always render out maybe 3 or 4 of these, and I'll choose areas that I like. Like I like the fact that the light tapers off at the top and he's shaded down at the bottom, and it gives you this really nice cast of a shadow behind him on this one, but I like the shadow that's happening up in his back and the blue on his back in this one. So I'll just bounce back and forth between all these pictures until I get something that I like. So, you know, one thing that I didn't do that I probably should have done is it's very difficult to get a read on these colors when I have a solid white background. It's really messing with my eyes here. So what I'm going to do is just grab a gray, some neutral gray. This is probably a little warmer than I want. But, something a little cooler. And then grab my oil. This one. Yeah. And then just throw some color in here.
How much is Poser going for these days?
I got an upgrade, so I think I ended up getting it for $200. They had some Christmas specials going on too, but I think if you get it new, I don't know, it's like three or four, something like that.
And before you were filling in the background there and you were cleaning up some of the edges, were you using the eraser for that, or were you painting with white?
No, I was using the eraser.
Okay.
Yeah, I have painted with whatever my background is, but I noticed that later on I'll have to go in and erase those areas if I change the background. So, and then I'll bounce around a lot, like yeah, is this the one? Yeah, okay. All right, so I have a few brushes. Probably just should have filled in the whole thing. All right, so I have a few brushes that I like that little smudge colors and also give me that nice oil look. So I'll just throw in, really just scribble in some colors. Blend, repeat until I get something that I like, you know, and normally it's a lot more thought out, but you know, when you only have an hour to show somebody what you're going for, it kind of is what it is. And then at that point I can go in and take my Scratchboard tool and just get textures. Like if I'm just looking for textures, it's another reason why I really like this brush. It's because, you know, it gives me these things that, look at that. There's stuff there that I couldn't, oops, my blender's too high. Stuff there that I couldn't, I could never figure that out, you know, the shapes and the way it does stuff. So it's a whole lot of back and forth. And that kind of looks like crap right now, but whatever.
I just want to let you know that we're about an hour in, and I'm sure everyone would love to sit and watch you for another hour, but I don't expect you to do that. So just giving you a time check.
Yeah, okay, well, thanks for telling me. I completely lost track of time. All right, well, I'll do a little more if you're down. You know,
Sure.
I don't, you know, a little longer. Let me see if I can get something that looks like a finished area here somewhere. This face. Is that all the questions? Tanya?
People are kind of quiet at the moment here. Let's see.
Okay.
Do you ever paint environments to go along with your character? I know you're very character driven.
I have, but generally I don't like to do that stuff. I leave it to the people who are better suited to it than I am. but there have been times when I have to paint whole backgrounds and stuff like that.
And there's a question about the shortcuts that you have mapped to your Intuos. Which ones are most important?
The ones I use hundreds of times in a piece are the rotate page, the temporal color picker, eyedropper. I think what else? Oh, I have an invert set up so that I can flip the whole thing so it's backwards, it's mirrored. I like that too. So now at this point what I would do is I'd probably go back to this 50, look at what a real eye would look like, and that the cavity where the eye sits here. And just go back and forth until I get something that looks right. Oh, another quick key that I have set up is it's not a quick key, I'm using my keyboard, but changing the opacity of the brush is super important. I'll go back and forth between 10% and maybe like 50–60% several times.
Okay, a few more questions for you. Are there any books that you recommend for painter?
Okay. Yeah, there is the name of it jumped out of my head. The one from Daryl Wise. What's that one called?
Secrets of Corel Painter Experts.
Yes, that's a good one. And the Painter Wow book is pretty fantastic. All the stuff by Don Segmiller is really good. He's a character artist. It's a painter master. And I think I have an older one of his books, but he's pretty awesome. I usually go to the bookstore and just see whatever is out for a painter. You know, it's always like a really huge Photoshop section, and you know, you're lucky if you can get a couple good painter ones. So I go online too. It doesn't even necessarily have to be painter. Lately, for Christmas I got the Massive Black Volume 1 book, which is they're a design house that does a lot of concept work for movies and video games, and just really, really good stuff. Android Jones is in there and some other guys.
What do you think would be the best way now to show a portfolio for someone that's just getting started?
Have a blog. You know, like blogs are free. You don't have to worry about setting up your own website or anything like that. Get a WordSpace page or a blog or whatever, and just get your work on there, update fairly regularly, and try to drive people to the site, you know, using the social media. That's the best way. I have one thing that worked out for me really well was when we did Comic-Con, I had my iPad with me, and it just so happened that on the way out the door, out of the convention center, we walked by the Capcom table. I pulled out my iPad and talked to one of the people there and showed them my work right on the nice big screen, and ended up you know, setting up some future work with Capcom. So you know, it's very easy now to get your stuff out. If you are so inclined.
In your layers, do you use the preserve transparency option or pick up underlying color, or do you just work with standard layers?
Now I'm using, I always keep on the pick up underline colors, and I will turn on preserve transparency from time to time as well. But I never turn off pick up underline colors. So now you can see, like, adding in some of these little details, like the edge of the cowl here around the eyes, or the hot highlights that fall underneath of the eyes. It just makes it start to feel a little more real. So if I was trying to pitch this to somebody as, a movie poster or whatever, they can get an idea of what it would look like as a photograph if they wanted to do that. And it's just back and forth. I'm just constantly going back and forth between my colors, bouncing around from area to area, just to try to keep it fresh. And this is what I was talking about a little earlier about getting, making it look like pores, is just laying in some, random marks with the Scratchboard tool. It gives you that feel that, that could actually be something.
Do you ever take advantage of the cloning feature or actually put the photo in a layer?
I used cloning for a project that it had a very large background, and I did not have a lot of time to paint all the people. So I painted the primary people, and then in the background I did like a photo montage, and then I cloned that using one of the brushes that I used to paint the people I was doing earlier. So it was it was a nice marriage of the looks. It saved me a lot of time, and it kind of got the look across that I was going for. Well, another thing I'll do too is I think this is just the standard key to switch the background is X. I'll flip my let me see over here. I'll flip my colors. So if I'm working in an area where I have a light and a dark, I didn't mean to do that. Where I have a light and a dark, I can just flip back and forth, and I don't have to keep using my dropper.
I just wanted to let everyone know, some people joined a little bit late, that this whole session is being recorded, so don't worry if you came late or you have to leave early, which Mike is nice enough to continue on for us here. So I will post the entire session to our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/painter-tutorials. And I'll also include a list of the books and resources and everything that you can lean towards for a little bit of help with Painter outside of all the webinar sessions. We do these once a month, the third Tuesday of every month, and we feature a different Painter Master, and they're all available to watch for free on our YouTube channel. So please go and check those out. There are a lot of people thanking you, Mike. I just want you to know, because I know you don't have time to hop over to the Q&A panel.
Oh, cool. I'm glad everybody could make it. This is fun for me because I never really do a live paint, where I'm, even the ones that I've done in the past, the tutorials in the past, like I was telling you earlier, have been kind of pre-painted by me to save time, and then I just tell you, here I did this, here I did this. But to actually see the piece come together is kind of interesting.
How did you become so good at working with light and luminance?
Thank you, first of all. And it's like I said, it's a lot of trial and error. You know, I've done a lot of pieces where it just did not work, and I think even on Twitter last week I was complaining because there was just something that just was not coming together for me. So I had good days and bad days. With you know, using the applications like Poser and having, you know, actual photographs to work from are really nice at figuring out things that, you know, you just, like, who knows that, you know, if light bends around the side of his face, it's going to pick up in some areas and reflection, and other areas it doesn't. There are some guys that do paint that way, and they're amazing. I don't even pretend to know that stuff, you know. So, I mean, as you can see, I stopped looking at anything at this point, and now I'm just kind of freestyling. I do that a lot, and then you know, if I look at it and say it works here, then fine. But if not, I can always just go in and erase and do another layer over top it or something.
I think that you already told us this, but did you mention how much RAM is in your system?
Yeah, 16 gigs.
Okay, thank you.
And I just recently upgraded that. I think I used to have 6, but there were some good Christmas sales. Oh, okay. So I just noticed his ear is actually exposed here. I didn't know that. So let's make that flesh toned.
Robert is wondering how you apply textures from the texture palette, or if you even use it at all.
I do use it. Actually, I used it back when I had Painter 11 and was doing all that G.I. Joe stuff. I have it somewhere around here. You know what? I haven't had time to get back into it. I think I lost all of my textures when I switched computers, and so I haven't gone back to it. But it's really nice to have. Like when I was doing, you know, when I was doing the soldiers and things like that, a lot of times they would have like a ripstop nylon jacket, or, you know, a canvas belt or something like that, and I had those textures saved and went in and was able to pull them into the piece by, you know, just selecting that texture and painting over it with a brush like the, oh, see, I'm under my line. I was wondering why I couldn't see what I was doing here. I'll do that. Go over the line. Yeah, so yeah, I used to use it. It's a great app, and I mean, it's a great feature of the application that I intend to get back into when I have a second to redo every texture that I had done already before.
There are a lot of people wondering if you're going to end up posting the finished work anywhere.
Yeah, once it's done, I'm going to get together with Dawud and Brian, and I'm sure we'll have it on the official BROTHERMAN site and forum. I'll be posting it on my blog. You know, probably tweet it out. Just get it out there. Now, unfortunately, after today, I think the reason I'm spending so much time now is because I got a lot of work to finish, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to put BROTHERMAN on on pause for a minute while I catch up with some deadlines, but I will be finishing it. One thing I did want to mention is I'm supposed to be doing another webinar for Wacom. I don't have a date set yet. I believe it's going to be in February. But what I'd like to do is maybe a part 2 on that webinar, and then Corel and Wacom can share, can share that. Another thing with my illustrations, you can see just little hints of details really sell the piece. You know what I mean? Like just adding in a little stitch line will make it feel like this thing is actually sewn onto his face and not just, spray painted on there or something. I think working in the fashion industry kind of helped me with realizing all that stuff too.
There are a lot of questions just about whether or not you've really been using the Scratchboard tool. Has been your main tool of choice in this session, along with Just Add Water, but is there anything else that you've used in here, or is it mostly Scratchboard?
For this one, I've been on Scratchboard, but really the oil, the MT oil that I have here, and there's the triangular oil. I use these as well. These are good because they'll pick up some of that paper texture, and also they give me a nice kind of more of a painterly feel. Those are my go-tos. I use those a lot. I use the pencil early on, and if I really want an area to feel super painterly, I'll go in and use that. My Ashley wood brush that I made, and Ashley Wood is an amazing artist. In case anybody is wondering why I keep mentioning that name, if you have a chance, check him out online. It's pretty dope. So his style is very it's very palette knife-esque, I guess, for lack of a better term, and so I made a brush that kind of mimics that look.
David is saying that the skin tone appears to be monochromatic, and do you find that that works best for you?
No, not really. I mean, by the time he's done, I'll add some greens to his face, and some areas. I don't really need red or anything in this guy, but say it was Thor or somebody, I would add blues and reds and grays and things like that. For African American folks, the skin tone varies, but I don't know that it's easier. Maybe it is. I don't know. I just do it so much that I'm used to it now.
Can you repeat the name of that artist? Ashley, what was her last name?
Oh, it's a guy. It's Ashley Wood.
Oh, okay.
Or
Ashley
Woods.
Wood.
Wood. Let me see. It might be Woods.
Does he have a blog?
Yeah.
Ashley Bombaland?
He does Tokyo Pop Bot. All right. So anyway, and even this is still very sketchy. You can see in some areas it's very it's starting to be a little more representative of the finished piece, like around the eye. But that's pretty much my technique.
Are you just shrinking down the size of the Scratchboard tool to get such control for the fine lines around the eyes, nose, mouth?
Mm-hmm. That's all. Oh, that's the other shortcut that I have set up is I can resize my brush. I have that set up as my it's the back toggle on my Intuos pen.
This really is fun to watch, Mike.
I'm sorry, what's that?
I said this is so much fun to watch. We've never,
Oh, thank you.
had the opportunity to see you do this complete of a painting in the webinar.
Thanks. I'm surprised I'm able to get this much done as quickly as I am. Now, you can see I went in there and some of these things aren't necessarily working. His eye is hard to see now, so I'll go in and because it's on its own layer, I can turn down the opacity on my eraser. Oops. No, I guess I can't. It's not on its own layer. All right, well, whatever, it's all good. Let's make a new one now and save. So now while I'm doing that, I would go I'll look for some teeth reference. So, yeah, I guess it works. All right, so at that point, I could, I lost my mouse. All right. So now I can get a better idea of what actual teeth look like underneath the lip, and I'm not just guessing.
Do you have any advice for students who want to be amazing digital illustrators?
Absolutely. Just you got to do it. You know, you have to. You know, you have to do it a lot. You know, there's that book Outliers where they talk about it getting your. You know, what is it? Is it 15,000 hours or however many thousand hours of whatever in, and you'll be amazing at no matter what you choose to do. You know, I subscribe to that theory. You just have to, you got to kind of drop whatever ego you have, which is, it's hard as an artist. You know, we're kind of conditioned to think that people should love our work, but you know, if there's room to grow, and there's always room to grow as far as I'm concerned, you have to be able to take criticism and just work on making every piece a better piece. So, you know, stick to your craft, and don't let anybody tell you can't do it. You know, that's kind of a hippie way of saying it, but I think that's what I did anyway. My mom and dad used to love telling me, well, my mom anyway used to tell me how I need to find a real job, you know, and the art would end up, you know, being the equivalent of maybe a street sweeper or something, but, you know, you can't go for that. You got to just do your thing.
Are there any magazines that you'd recommend that we all read to keep up on digital art?
Yeah, I love Imagine FX. That's a ballistic publication out of the UK, and I subscribe to that one. It's got, you know, it's kind of fantasy stuff, but the techniques of the artists are really, really good. So I subscribe to that one. There's, I mean, I'm down with all of the ballistic books. I really, you know, they come out with the publications like Exotique and Painter. You know, they have a Painter book and things like that. Those are the ones that I kind of gravitate towards.
Are there any online portals that you frequent to just kind of exchange with other artists?
I do. I'm a member of the CG workshop CG Society page. That's pretty amazing. There's a lot of really good artists there, and industry folks, you know. So it's people who are in the business doing work for movies and video games and things of that nature. And also, I just joined Filter Foundry, which is it's a site for artists where you can, you know, you can go get instructional, you can watch instructional tutorials, you can post your own work. You have that, you know, that social media type of a hangout where you can bond with other artists, and Deviant Art is a really good one. You know, there's people who are professional illustrators and comic book artists and stuff that have Debian pages, and you know, you can have access to people who you may be surprised, you know, right there on that site. So there's a lot of really good ones.
Do you have a future painter feature request for us?
Feature request. I don't know. That one you dropped yesterday was pretty good. You know, I'm still waiting for the I'm still waiting for the native 64-bit support, but that's it. You guys have addressed pretty much everything else. And I mean for a Mac. I know you have it for a PC.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. And just so everyone else currently on the line knows, we released an update for Painter 12. So we've got a Painter 12.1 free update, and there's 9 new and enhanced features that you can just download the update right off Corel.com. In case you're interested, you can go there and check the What's New section to see exactly what's new and download the update.
So no, that's without the line. So you can see this is pretty much the process. I would just go in, and this is maybe, I don't know, 65, 70% of where this face would go. You can see the rest of the body is real loose. But that's the process, you know. I would just keep going over it and figuring out my lighting, kind of dialing in the rim light. I can tell now that the shadow could be stronger in his cheek, so I would go in and adjust that. And around his nose, there probably should be a darker cast shadow. Fix the eye and things like that. But this is what I do. Oops.
Mike, do you have any special techniques for different types of clothing, like leather, latex, cotton, whatever it may be?
Yeah, if it's very texture heavy, I will either, most often I'll find a paper that kind of simulates whatever that texture is. Like maybe I would use more of let's see, papers. So maybe I would go into something that has a larger grain than basic paper, maybe a cold press paper or something like that, cold press board, and then I would use a brush that maintains that texture. So one of the chalk brushes, or a blender that would maintain whatever that look is. And then I approximate it with the Scratchboard tool. I'm telling you, the Scratchboard tool is my Swiss Army knife. So even like, say, dude had a mustache or something. I think I did this for Anchorman, but whether it's textures for clothing, or for the face, just the nature of this brush. And I have it too big now, and the opacity is too low. But anyway, the nature of this brush lends itself to doing a lot of these textures. All right. So anyway, I think I'm kind of hitting the end of my road here. Well, you get the picture. So now, at this point, I could go and erase the line around the eyes, because, or of that eye anyway, the one on our left, because it's pretty much done. I was playing around with doing a little stitch around the eye, but I would probably just turn down the opacity so it doesn't look so garish, and leave that alone. But that's
all right.
the long and short of it.
That is some great work right there. And I know that everyone is dying to see the finished product, so whenever you get to that point, we'll be sure to post it on our social media properties and guide you all to it so that you can see it. And when that webinar happens with Wacom, we'll also post that. So thank you so much. We have a ton of people still on the line, Mike, and that's a testament to how much they're learning and how much they enjoy your style, and we love having you. And thank you so much for continuing to do these great webinar sessions for us.
Thanks for having me. Always fun.